Well, we'll go ahead and get started. We are so grateful that all of you folks have joined us today. What you see in the chat going on right now is Dr. O'Byrne has asked us to list our songs that just give us a pick me up, that make us feel good about life. So feel free to add that as we get started. The song that just really excites you and makes you feel good, add that to the chat. But my name is Dr. Dina Counts. I'm Assistant Dean of the College of Graduate and Professional Studies, among other hats that I wear. But I'm also working with the FDI team, and we wanted to welcome y'all here to our 2023 kickoff. You may have noticed in our last newsletter that we're going to be doing our live events once every term and the Thursday at the beginning of each term. So this is a change from last year where we were doing one every month. Some of the topics that you're going to see this year are topics on online learning, another topic on faith in the classroom. And we're just real excited to have you folks come and to share your wisdom with us, to learn from each other. And this is a great way to connect with each other. Dr. Nanette Glenn was not able to join us today. As you can see with my background, she and I are at a conference, but she wanted to also say thank you for being here and being a part of FDI and what you're doing. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Dr. Kathy Carroll. She is our Program Director of Health and Human Performance. And if you don't know her yet, she's also just a wonderful human being. So Dr. Carroll will be our guide for the presentation today with Dr. O'Byrne. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. It's my privilege to serve as guide and to introduce our presenter today, Dr. KK O'Byrne. She is an Associate Professor of Organizational Leadership at ACU Dallas. She received her master's and her PhD in counseling psychology from the University of Missouri at Kansas City, and her bachelor's with honors in psychology from the University of Missouri at Columbia. Her research interests are positive psychology and in health psychology as they relate to leadership, organizations, and families. Recently, KK and Dr. Heather Rasmussen harnessed their expertise in positive psychology and developed a positive leadership track in the organizational leadership program. In her spare time, you'll catch KK spending time with her daughters, cooking, enjoying the outdoors, and pursuing her interest in art and photography. And something you may not know about her, one of her special talents is parallel parking. So I'll be looking for the presentation on that. I can use all the help I can get. So without any further ado, Dr. O'Byrne, take it away.
Well, thank you so much for the nice introduction. And yes, parallel parking is one of my special talents. And yeah, I do annoy people who are in the car with me when I'm parking. I'm like, did you see that beautiful work? That was lit 2-point turn parking. Yes, I know. So I feel like if there was an Olympics in parallel parking, I would qualify, right? So anyway, doesn't mean I'm a good driver, but I can park a mean car, right? But anyway, I'm so happy to be with all of you today and to share some of the information that I've been so blessed to learn about positive emotions. It's one of those things that I can honestly say has changed my life. I'm blessed to have a background in positive psychology. And one of the really cool things about positive psychology is it's not really a spectator sport, right? When you're teaching it and when you're developing courses based on it, you can't help but learn it and live it. And so that is one of the biggest blessings in my life. So I'm excited to share what I know with you. And I hope that it will help you in some way. And you know, chances are at the beginning of this new year, Happy New Year, by the way, to everybody. But if you're like most people, you have a New Year's resolution or 2 or 40. And, you know, for many people, they make New Year's resolutions to be happier or be healthier or just be a better person, right? Well, what I'm going to talk to you about today, positive emotions, can really help you with all 3 of those things. Okay. So it might make sense that, oh, positive emotions can help me be happier, right? Positive emotions are part of the happiness equation. We've, you know, happiness is thought of as frequent positive emotions, infrequent negative emotions, and high life satisfaction. Okay. And so that makes intuitive sense, right? But positive emotions making you healthier, Yeah, they do. People who experience frequent positive emotions have better health outcomes and even live 10 years longer than their less um, positive emotionally um, salient counterparts. It's not the right word, but people who harness positive emotions less frequently. So, and then also just being a better person. Can positive emotions really help you be a better person and live your best life? Absolutely, they can. So positive emotions not only feel good, they do good, and they help us be the best versions of ourselves. So I'm so excited to talk to you about that and share what I know. And I do want to acknowledge that that it might seem hokey. I'm going to give you a lot of background information on positive emotions to hopefully convince you that it's not hokey, that there's some really strong science behind what we know about positive emotions. And I also want to acknowledge that right now in the world, it might seem kind of trivial that, with all of the things going on in the world, um, we've got horrible flooding in California, and we've got, the FAA meltdown yesterday that impacted so many people. You know what? We have social issues like racism and social inequalities and mental health crises, especially among youth, and public health issues like COVID that we need to be addressed. So it might seem hokey and insensitive even to talk about positive emotions when we do have all these other things in the world, and that thinking about something like jumping for joy might seem so unimportant right now. And like I said, insensitive, but I hope throughout this presentation, I will convince you that positive emotions are so important when things are good and when things are not good, and that they can help us cope when things aren't good, and they can also help us, give us the tools to help find solutions to some of those big problems that our world is facing. Okay, but I do also want to give you, I'll tell you what I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to talk about positive emotions. What are they? How do they work? And why they're important? And how much do you need? How many positive emotions per day are enough? And how, most importantly, how do you harness positive emotions? How do you build more opportunities for positive emotions in your life? But I want to give you a cautionary tale, because I think, sometimes when people think, oh, positive emotions, oh, that's like, she's going to tell us all these things that are really not realistic. And, I'm going to tell you that even though my daughter Anna here, she's now 22 years old, which is so hard to believe. But even though she looks really cute in rose-colored lenses, I am not going to tell you to see the world through rose-colored lenses. That's not part of this presentation. And I've got a few other cautionary tales. I'm not going to try to convince you that it's good to make something bad not bad, and definitely not make something bad good, right? It's not about getting rid of negative emotions. They're really, really, really important for our survival. And I'm definitely not going to encourage you to make be positive your motto, right? That is actually harmful. And, there's a term called toxic positivity, where we try to, well, some people will try to make everything positive and convince other people that, oh no, it's fine that you just got fired from your job. Be positive. No, that can actually erode us and really do so much harm, right? And so those are things that I am not going to be talking about today. But first, I want to just cover a very basic concept of, when I'm talking about an emotion, what do I mean? Very simply, an emotion is a response, okay? And so if you just want to stop there and like not worry about the rest of it, all you have to really know is that an emotion is a response. But just to be clear, an emotion is a really complicated response, okay, where we have these simultaneous changes in our subjective feelings and our attention and how we think and our behavior facial expressions, and even our physiology. Okay. And all of these things interact with each other and influence each other all in like a micro moment. Okay. And so they're complicated. So if you ask someone how they're feeling and their answer is, well, it's complicated, they're actually telling you the truth. Okay. But the really important piece of emotions is that that all of this depends on how we appraise it or the meaning that we attach to a person or situation, an activity, thing, whatever it is. Okay. And so it's that appraisal that makes us feel in a certain way, right? And generally speaking, our emotions are, this is a very broad categorization, are positive emotions or negative emotions, right? And even, three people experiencing the same thing can have very different emotions about it because of that appraisal, right? And so if you look at this example of me and my family, two of us have very positive emotions about the log ride in Silver Dollar City in Branson, Missouri. And one of us has negative emotions. Can you guess which one has negative emotions about the log ride? My daughter Carolina in the middle here. And so again, it's all about how we appraise a situation. And so for Carolina, she experienced negative emotions in this situation, most likely fear. Okay. And do you think we got off the ride and she wanted to go again? Nope, absolutely not. And that's really kind of one of the hallmarks of negative emotions. When we experience negative emotions like fear, sadness, shame, we generally avoid the situation or person or whatever that's eliciting those feelings, right? And another hallmark of negative emotions, and I feel like I need to illustrate this so that you understand positive emotions a little bit better because we know so much about negative emotions, right? We've studied negative emotions for decades, and that's where most of the research on emotions is in negative emotions, right? But when we experience a negative emotion like fear, we have these changes, right? That again, all of those responses where our attention narrows, our vision narrows, our awareness is very constrained and limited. And we generally have physical changes to help mobilize us to action, like our heart rate increases, our digestion stops, and again for a very specific purpose. And when we have a negative emotion like fear, we don't have a whole lot of options that we will think about to choose from, and we shouldn't, right? It's generally broadly in the category of fight or flight, right? And so if you realize that if you're hiking and there's a bear in your path, it doesn't serve you well to think about a lot of options of what you should do, right? In that situation, you should either probably not fight. That's not what I would do, but I would sure run and try to flight and get out of there. And positive or negative emotions, whether are adaptive, right? They have a benefit and it's an immediate benefit. They help us survive, which is kind of ironic because in the long term, they can kill us, right? And so if you think about how um, negative emotions, they help us survive, but they can be harmful, right? That wear and tear to our body. There's so much physical action that happens when we experience negative emotions. And it's not the same with positive emotions. And then also with negative emotions, like I said earlier, that emotions are complicated. We have our subjective thoughts and how we think, and our physical actions and physiology. All of those things interact simultaneously. And so, an example of how negative emotions can be harmful, besides that physical toll that it takes on our body, is that we know that that there's a strong relationship between negative emotions and pessimistic explanatory style, right? So negative emotions are highly correlated with pessimism, and then pessimism is also linked to giving up on goals and goal pursuit. And it's also linked to feeling really fatigued and so on. And then feeling fatigued can lead to more negative emotions, which can lead to more pessimism. And so anyway, they can put us in a downward spiral, right? And so there are a lot of negative effects that happen from that. But the good news is that we can recover from that. And positive emotions are an antidote, one possible antidote to helping us recover from negative emotions. And I also do feel like I have a moral obligation to show you that my daughter Carolina was not permanently traumatized by the ride on the log ride. We have something that she actually enjoyed more. And this is an experience, parasailing, where we all experience positive emotions. She was still a little bit apprehensive, but generally loved it and got off the parasail ride and wanted to do it again immediately, right? So she wanted to approach, which is a hallmark of positive emotions. And you know what? This is also an experience where we experience what we would call high activation positive emotions like excitement, joy. And, there are also lower activation positive emotions like serenity and gratitude. But the truth is that they all matter and they all have the same benefits to us, right? And so some of the more common positive emotions, this is not an exhaustive list, but joy, amusement, those are definitely high activation positive emotions. And then awe, inspiration, elevation, and they all have a really wonderful purpose, and they benefit us in many ways. And one of the cool things about positive emotions is that they overlap a lot. And so if I'm feeling awe, this is one of my favorite positive emotions. And so when you're if you've ever been somewhere beautiful in nature or seen a beautiful piece of artwork or heard a beautiful song, you might have that emotion, awe. And that is linked to really wonderful outcomes. When we experience awe, we have this sense of being smaller in the world in a good way. Like we realize, oh, we're not that, the world's not really revolving around us. Like we're one part of it, and it connects us to other people. And we realize that there's this other world out there, and it leads us to do good and to connect with others and embrace our common humanity. It's really, really wonderful. And I'll show you a couple of examples how I try to harness that emotion, because it's one that seems to come easier for me. And so think about these emotions and just kind of in your head, make note of maybe the last time you felt one of these and what was happening. And we'll talk more about that in just a little bit. But to just give you a little bit more information about positive emotions and how they work, like I said, when we feel a positive emotion, like joy, we're more likely to approach and engage with the person, situation, whatever is eliciting that emotion. And when we have a positive emotion, we have many possible actions. It's not just that narrow focus of fight or flight. We might explore, we might play, we might reach out to an old friend, we might take a hike in the woods. All of these things are really like we've a lot of possible actions. And then what positive emotions do is they really broaden how we think and how we perceive the world. And that leads us to take these actions, a wide variety of actions, and then build these really wonderful resources. And there are many benefits associated with positive emotions. People who've experienced frequent positive emotions they're more likely to be successful in their career. They're more likely to have better relationships, friendships, and romantic relationships. They're more likely to be successful in a variety of domains and have better mental health and physical health. And people who experience frequent positive emotions might even live longer than their counterparts who experience few positive emotions, all right, even up to 10 years longer. And there are many, many benefits associated with positive emotions, but they're usually delayed. They're usually not in that moment, like when we experience a negative emotion, right? But think of like every positive emotion you feel, like literally a micro moment of joy or gratitude or amusement, whatever that is, like even that fleeting moment, it has benefit, okay? And sometimes, like we think of those benefits as being stored in a reserve tank for later when we need them, when we need to they build resilience, and we'll need to pull on them and the benefits that they create at some point. But and they also they do help us survive, just like negative emotions, right? And so, so I just want to illustrate like that positive emotions are different than negative emotions. So when when researchers started to talk about or consider studying positive emotions, it was really difficult at first because they're trying to put it into the same paradigm as negative emotions, but it didn't work. They're qualitatively different phenomena, okay? And so you can experience a negative emotion and a positive emotion at the same time, right? Because they're not at opposite ends of the same spectrum. They're on different spectrums. So, I have that experience right now. Linnea is leaving, and I'm happy for her. I'm also really sad for me. So I'm happy sad. And I think that's a good illustration of how positive emotions are qualitatively different. But here's what happens when we have a positive emotion. I'm going to just kind of give you a little visual explanation here. So again, let's say that I am bursting with joy. I have this something that happens that makes me feel joyful. And I have a lot of different things that I might do because when I'm feeling joy, what this does, and I'll tell you more about this in a second, it broadens my vision and my hold on. Okay. It broadens my my view of the world and what I might do, my thoughts, all of that, right? And it makes me more open-minded, and I see more similarity between myself and others. So I might take a lot of different actions. I might engage with others, and if I do like hang out with friends or play whatever, then I'm building resources. I'm building relationships, right? Or if I go explore, I'm building knowledge. Right. I'm getting more information about the environment and stuff. And then this makes me feel pride or even more interest or something like that. And then which leads to more experiences. And so it's this upward spiral in contrast to negative emotions, right? And so anyway, when we experience a positive emotion, literally like a microsecond, a micro moment of joy, this fleeting feeling does so much good for us, okay? That we might not, again, we don't realize in the moment, but it catches up with us later in a really wonderful way. So when we experience a positive emotion, our world literally opens up, okay? Our vision literally expands, okay? Our visual field expands. We know this from brain imaging studies and eye tracking studies, but we take in information in our peripheral vision, even in studies where the researchers instruct participants not to take in information in the periphery, we still do. We can't help it, right? We're more aware. We take in more contextual information. We also see more overlap between ourselves and others. We think more in terms of we, not me. And especially in individualistic cultures, that that difference is really, really profound. And, we're more flexible in terms of how we think and how we act, and we're more open-minded, we're more creative. We our memory is sharper. And, in studies where researchers ask kids to think of a happy memory before they go and take the ACT or another test, students do better than their counterparts who aren't receiving those instructions to think of a happy moment, right? And so it can help us in so many wonderful ways, right? And like I already said, that these, those actions then can help us build more resources, intellectual resources. There's some famous studies from the late 70s and early 80s, a long time ago, by a social psychologist named Alice Eisen. And she studied how positive emotions help our cognition and our decision making. And she did a series of really famous experiments on physicians and their ability to make a correct diagnosis with a patient who presented with complicated and vague symptoms. And so what she did was she took two groups of divided physicians into two groups. They didn't know they were participating in this research study. And then, one group of physicians received a bag of candy from the patient, and the other group didn't. And so that bag of candy was a way to elicit positive emotions in the physicians. And the group that received the bag of candy, thereby experiencing positive emotions, they came up with correct diagnosis time after time, and they did it relatively quickly. And that has been repeated over time. And it's an example of how just like doing something to get ourselves, in a positive emotional state, or if somebody else does it for us, can really help us, our decision making and our capacity to figure things out, even when it's complicated. And so that's why anytime I get on an airplane, if I don't remember to bring a bag of candy for the pilot, I turn to the cockpit and I try to wave him down and to thank him ahead of time, hopefully eliciting some positive emotion. And you know what? It has worked so far. All right. I'm living proof. So, positive emotions also build social resources. They help us connect with others, and they even help us be more altruistic. And psychological resources, they help us build resilience. And so there's a really interesting study that my colleague Barbara Fredrickson started. She actually started the study right before 9/11. Okay. And she was looking at some long-term impacts of positive emotions. And obviously 9/11 was a horrible event. And in this case, it actually presented a really interesting research opportunity to see what happened, with people's positive emotions pre and post 9/11. And although positive emotions generally decreased after 9/11 and stress increased, and depressive levels for many people increased, people who experienced more positive emotions pre 9/11, who had, higher state positive emotional level, they did better. Their level of positive emotions didn't drop as dramatically, even though they did experience stress. They were able to cope with it, more readily. You know what? Some people who experienced high levels of positive emotions did develop depressive symptoms, but they were generally milder and shorter lived than people who experienced fewer positive emotions pre 9/11. And so that's just one example of how it builds, they do build resilience. And then physical resources. There's so many amazing outcomes associated with our physical health and positive emotions. And, and like I said earlier, like people who experience frequent positive emotions actually live longer than their counterparts who don't experience frequent positive emotions. Why is this the case? Okay, so we know a lot about health behaviors and positive emotions and relationships, that those are related to positive emotions and also impact our physical health, right? And this is something that researchers have been studying for a while. You know what? We know that positive emotions impact our physical health by neutralizing the stress response and through decreasing bad hormones, increasing good hormones, and all of these other really wonderful things. But really, in the past decade, researchers have started to realize that, you know what? Positive emotions impact our vagus nerve, our vagal tone. And that's actually what's responsible for all of these other really awesome outcomes. All right. And so our vagus nerve is a nerve that it's so important in our health. And it is, it's a nerve and kind of that branches off in different areas, but it runs from our brainstem, as you can see in this picture, to our heart and to other vital organs. Okay. And so the vagus nerve is part of our autonomic nervous system, which is the system that's responsible for all of our automatic processes like breathing and our heart rate and things like that, right? And it's more specifically within the autonomic nervous system. There are two branches to the autonomic nervous system: the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. So you probably recall that the sympathetic nervous system is what's activated in the fight or flight response, and when we have stress and negative emotions, right? But the parasympathetic nervous system is the calming system, and it undoes the damage that the sympathetic nervous system does. All right. And so the vagus nerve is responsible for about 75% of the functioning in the parasympathetic nervous system. And this is really, really important. Okay. And so there's something called vagal tone. Okay, and that's the functioning of the vagus nerve, and it's an indirect measure of heart rate variability. Okay, and so when we think about our heart and what it does, when we experience a negative emotion, like something scares us, then it's the vagus nerve that helps calm. Okay, again, part of the parasympathetic nervous system that helps kind of calm and get it back to baseline. But even moment to moment, when we're breathing, every time we exhale, our heart rate should slow down just a little bit. Okay, so our heart rate isn't, when we're doing nothing, it shouldn't be exactly the same throughout a period of time. It should decrease when we exhale, and it will increase slightly when we inhale. And this is actually really, really healthy, and what it's supposed to be like. And so anyway, the vagus is responsible for reducing inflammation, reducing heart disease, and all of these other things that are important for our health. You can see where it points to in all the different organs. But what we've learned is that when we experience positive emotions, it stimulates the vagus nerve, okay? And it impacts our health in really positive ways, okay? And it does so, especially those times when we're experiencing positive emotions, when we're connecting with other people, okay? And so over time, we experience more positive emotions, and our vagal tone is better, and our vagus nerve develops stronger connections between our head and our heart and the other organs too. Okay. And then when we experience an increase in vagal tone, then we're more able to harness positive emotions and to more readily connect with other people and develop those really wonderful connections. So it's this reciprocal process, and it's so powerful. And I think it's probably one of the biggest discoveries in the last the last couple of decades. And so what you're doing by and we're going to get there in just a second, like how to harness positive emotions, you're literally strengthening that connection between your head and your heart. A lot of this research has been done by neuroscientists studying meditation. And there's a type of meditation called loving kindness meditation, where we're instructed to think of somebody that we know and to self-generate warm feelings for those people, right? And so anyway, it's a really cool way to harness positive emotions, but it's been studied in the lab by neuroscientists and psychologists and physicians alike. So anyway, how much positive emotions do we need? How many do we need? Is there like a certain dose of positive emotions? We know how many fruits and vegetables we should eat every day. Well, it's not really the number, it's more the ratio, okay? And so basically, and these numbers have been called into question, like their exact, the exact ratios may not be what they are here, but somewhere in the ballpark, you can be assured that we need so many positive emotions to offset any negative emotion. All right. And generally, the thought is that it's for individuals, it's 3 to 1. So we need 3 positive emotions to offset every one negative emotion. And so sometime today, I encourage you to go to this website, and we'll send it to you. And you can take a test and get your ratio of your positive to negative emotions. And it might be lower than you think. It might not be, but it's hard when we think of all the experiences that we have day to day, and within each day, that we need a lot to offset anything that's negative. And so it changes every day. And so I encourage you to maybe think about, for the next few weeks, even the next month, to try to remember to take this every day. It only takes a couple of minutes, and just see how you're doing, to kind of gauge your progress on mobilizing positive emotions. And there's a point where we can have too many positive emotions. The cutoff is basically like 11 to 1. And again, it's like if you see a bear charging at you and you're happy about it, you got a problem, right? So there is a limit, and so I encourage you to look into that. But how do we increase our positive emotions? I'm sure you all have things that you do every day that you don't even know that they're boosting positive emotions, right? So, I mean, my simplest answer is, boom, take a trip to Disneyland, right? Everybody's happy at Disneyland. I'm kidding. Once in a lifetime for many people, if that. What a blessing that I was able to experience that with Carolina. And I'm sure you're going to be able to piece together in this presentation how I harness my positive emotions. It's not too subtle here, but anyway, so if a trip to Disneyland is not in your future, there are a lot of other ways that that you can harness positive emotions. And so I'll tell you that I just occurred to me this morning that I'm like, oh yeah, there's a really obvious way that I hadn't thought about until now, was that Carolina's middle name is Love. Okay, and I named her Carolina Love on purpose. When I was pregnant with her, I had a feeling that she was going to be a little rambunctious, and that I might be, using her middle name a lot, when you're stern with someone and call them, their full name. And so I'm like, oh, but if I name her Carolina Love, nobody can be mad when they're saying love. And well, it's not true. I can still be a little bit mad when I'm saying love, depending on what she's done. But generally, I love it. It's awesome. And so, Carolina is my younger daughter. She's 18 now. And when Anna, her older sister, realized that Anna decided that that her own name was boring. She's like, why did you name me Anna? And Carolina's Carolina Love. And she was in 2nd grade when she decided that she didn't have a great name, and that she wanted to change her name when she turned 18. And she's like, it's not fair that, her middle name is something really awesome and people love it and they talk about it. And my brother happened to be in town, and part of that conversation, he swooped in for the biggest win of his life. And he's like, but Anna Marie O'Byrne, your initials form the Latin root for love. And she's like, oh, wow. And suddenly everything was better. In fact, it was so much better. She went to school and she told her 2nd grade teacher, who sent me an email, and she's like, did you know that there's research on people's initials and their longevity? And I guess there are some old studies of baseball players who have initials that are associated with positive connotations like ACE or WIN, they live up to 13 years longer than those with initials that are kind of negative connotations like BAD and so on. And so anyway, I didn't know about this research and it was a fluke. I didn't even know that Anna's initials were AMO, the root for love. But not that you can go rename yourself or your children, but there are ways that you can prime your environment with information like that, right? And so, and I'll talk about a couple more in a minute, but So when you're thinking about increasing your positive emotions, okay, think of it as a lifestyle change, just like living a healthier lifestyle, right? And eating more fruits and vegetables, right? Just have patience with yourself and don't feel like, oh, I must experience a positive emotion in this situation because that will backfire, right? Just give yourself grace. Try out, think of the different positive emotions and things that you know make you feel good, right? And start there and try to build it into your daily life. Be purposeful about it and prioritize time to do that, and know that that it doesn't matter how long that feeling lasts or how intense you feel that. It's just the frequency, right? And so as many times as you can throughout the day, give yourself opportunities to have those boosts. And again, sometimes it just comes naturally, but sometimes it doesn't. And so we just can add some structures into our day. And it's those micro moments. It's like little tiny moments that matter. Okay. There's a bonus. We get more out of it when we're connecting with others, even if it's something as simple as if you're at the grocery store and you see a toddler and you make eye contact and smile with them or play peekaboo. That matters. It's that micro moment of connecting with somebody, and it boosts positive emotions and bagel tone, remember, in really profound ways. And it's an even bigger bonus when there's an opportunity for collective positive emotions where you're experiencing I'm from Kansas City and our Chiefs are doing really, really well. And it's awesome. And so I experience more benefit if I'm watching the Chiefs game with others and they're winning. And those positive emotions I feel, I experience more when I'm with other people and they're experiencing the same things than I do when I'm by myself. Even though I really don't like football that much, it's like, okay, I guess it could be good for my health. So maybe I'll watch some, especially since we're so close to making it to the Super Bowl, fingers crossed, right? But there are when I talk about positive emotions, people like the example of Disneyland was obviously extreme, right? You don't need to spend a dime on ways to enhance positive emotions. They're all around you. Like even in an ordinary moment, like right now, if you're to think, not maybe right now in this presentation, because, but beyond today, if you're just pausing for a moment, ask yourself questions like, okay, what's right about the place that I'm in right now? Or what's right with this circumstance? What's beautiful about this moment? What can I celebrate about this moment? And so on. What is here that I'm grateful for? I tell my colleagues every day, I'm so grateful to work with all of you. It's such a blessing. And that makes my my life and my work all the better. So anyway, so even in ordinary moments, we can harness positive emotions by asking targeted questions. And then, of course, even in challenging moments, we can still ask these questions. It doesn't mean that we're making something bad not bad or making something bad good. It means that we're also realizing, okay, there are other pieces here that I can acknowledge. And like this is an ordinary moment outside of Costco a couple of years ago. And the sunset is something that brings me a lot of positive emotions, awe, joy. I feel also serenity when I'm watching the sunset. And so just walking outside Costco, it's like, oh, it's everywhere, right? And then in my backyard, and this is more purposeful, I try to get outside every evening and watch the sunset every time I'm able to. And it's funny because I was looking through my phone for pictures, and Apple phones, you can search by like topic or name, and so I put in sunset, and I have 970 photos of sunsets. So obviously that is something that for me does bring a lot of positive emotion, and it's simple, it's free, and it's nature's gift, right? And like I said, even more powerful when it's something that you can share with others. And this is my cousin and his grandson. But anyway, and there are things that we can do. I was talking about my daughter's name, Carolina Love. It just occurred to me this morning, look, there's so many awesome ways out there to prime our environment for ourselves and for others. Okay. And so my friend Caroline Miller, this is her car, her yellow car, and she lives in Maryland, and she has, she's awesome, but her license plate is, we have fun. And so this is something that obviously like primes the environment for other people, but she swears like she gets so many people like giving her like high fives and air high fives from the car and like honking and like thumbs up. And so she's like, she reaps a lot of positivity back from that, and she says it just gets her joy to do that and know that she can make people happier. Okay, so my friend who lives in Colorado sent me this one a couple of years ago on the top right, crazy for KK. I guess somebody in Colorado is crazy for KK, and I hope to meet that person someday. They might be my soulmate. And so anyway, so we can structure our environment. These are examples of like, the things that help other people, but just that we can still reap the benefits from as well. And so those are examples of priming the environment. I've done that throughout this presentation with pictures of sunsets and my daughters and things that bring me joy and make me happy, right? But even in our homes or where we live, we can prime the environment and with pictures that elicit positive emotions, or we can create rituals like watching the sunset and express gratitude, where I think gratitude is the really the simplest way to enhance our positive emotions, right? It's a positive emotion, but here's what I really think happens with gratitude is that when we express it to somebody, like I say, Kathy, thank you for being such an awesome friend and for being so supportive and helping me pull this presentation together and being really like an expert in everything, including technology. It makes me even more grateful and joyful, like when I'm thinking of that. And then I'm saying it to Kathy, and let's just pretend for a moment like that Kathy is like, oh, wow, that's awesome. So she might feel great gratitude, and she might feel joy or other positive emotions too. And then she might say, well, that's so nice of you to say, KK. And then that makes me feel better too. So anyway, I think gratitude we know so much about gratitude and how important it is, but I really think it's something that elicits all these other positive emotions too, right? And so anyway, I talked about some of these other things already, but I think it's also so important to like think about what you do, how you spend your time, and how you make decisions. Do we ever really think about how much positive emotion will this bring me if I do this? How happy will this make me if I decide this versus this? Sometimes we do, but maybe that's something that we should consider when we're making decisions. So I don't know, and then just it's experimenting with anything, right? There are, of course, some empirically validated interventions that I'll talk about here in a second too, but I want to know from you all, like, what is, if you don't mind sharing, you don't have to, and you can unmute and do so, but what are things that make you experience positive emotions, any positive emotion? Something, it can be something little, something big. And you don't have to share, but if you care to, I'd love to know.
I think just helping other people.
Boom. I love it. I love it. And I'm sorry, who was that?
This is Sandy Hightower. I was going to say, hello, Mr. Mike. I'm so glad you butted in. You're my buddy. See, that was a positive emotion. Every time I see Mike, I just get all jazzed up. I'm here in California, and it's raining like, every day. I'm watching for Noah's Ark, but I love the rain. I have 2 birdhouses, and when it's just pouring rain, the birds come to me so they can eat. I love that. I think of, in the Bible where it says that God takes care of even the sparrow. Willie uses my birdhouse to take care of those babies, and I love it.
Oh, that's awesome.
KK, this is Megan. I think you know this, but we got a dog about 6 months ago and he's little and really cute. And he comes with me anywhere I can bring him because people like in the car and like, the coffee people, people pet him and he just brings so much joy to everyone. And that brings me so much joy. Like I bring him to school pickups. And that's just been such a positive emotion in our lives that we've also been able to pass on to others too.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And that is a great example of how you can bring that to others. And then, that connection with others too. And we call that positivity residence when that you can feed those positive emotions off of each other. That's awesome. Yeah. So those are great examples of everyday opportunities to, to stop and to take advantage of, like, oh, okay, I know that this brings people joy. I can bring my dog to, in carpool, or I can I can look out the window, even though, the rain is, it's devastating right now. I still, find the beauty in it and seeing the birds and everything too. So it's, and engaging in nature is a great way to harness positive emotions, and music, other experiences too. And, when we can engage with others, again, like that collective opportunity and connecting and building off of each other is so important. And then, we also know that, anytime you're having experiencing a positive emotion, to try to savor it and really think about what's happening in the moment, what you're doing, how you're feeling physically, and how you're thinking and all of that. And so that you can know that, okay, this is something that elicits positive emotions. I want to keep doing this, sharing good news with others, creating a positivity portfolio, which is collection of artifacts, of pictures or items, objects that bring back positive memories or make you happy, right? Using your strengths in a new way. So there are all kinds of other things that that we can do to elicit positive emotions, but chances are you're already doing a lot of things in your daily lives that you might not really realize that, oh, this positive emotions, unless you're a psychologist and you think about emotions a lot like I do, right? But I do think that it is so important to think about how to structure life around it. One example how I'm okay, no judgment here, but I lose my keys more than the average person does or should. And I know that there's never a chance of finding keys or anything when you're in a state of negative emotion, which is usually what happens when you can't find something, right? So I have to turn on my music and get myself as much as I can into a positive mood, and like, again, that literally opens my visual field, peripheral vision, and I'm more able to find my keys when that happens. But I think that I'm going to just wrap up there and remind you that if the positive emotions not only feel good, they do good, and they can help us be the healthiest, happiest, best versions of ourselves, and help us tackle the bigger problems. Remember, we are better, more creative problem solvers when we experience frequent positive emotions. And just I hope you give yourself grace and the time every day to try to boost your levels of positive emotion. And even those micro moments matter so much. And you know what? I think that we've got time for questions if anybody has any.
KK, this is Sandy Hightower again. God has blessed me so much in this year. I was in the hospital on Christmas Eve, and there was a big thing whether I was going to have open heart surgery on Christmas Eve. And I just said, Lord, I don't know why I'm here in the hospital, but you just see me through it. And he gave me peace. And the nurses came in, they go, "Why are you so happy all of a sudden?" And I said, "Well," I said, "there's no reason." I said, "Yes, it's Christmas Eve, and yes, I want to be home. And I have 14 people coming tomorrow, but I want to think about who I might influence right now. And you guys are going to be here on Christmas Day. I might as well be with you and bring some happiness." She goes, "I never thought about that." And she goes, "And I'm just surprised to hear a patient say that." But God does take us when we are in negative situations and we have negative emotions. I could have been bawling my eyes out because that's the last thing I wanted to do was have open heart surgery. But praise God, I didn't have to. And my doctor called and said, "Hey, it's Christmas Eve. Why don't you go home? And we'll follow up in the office." It's like, oh, praise be to God. So, we have to look for those times to be positive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, I am so grateful that you're here and that you didn't have to have that surgery. And thank you for sharing that experience. And that is such a great example that we have to be active. We have to look. All right. And often, something I didn't say here, but when we are connected with God, that can be a really wonderful source of positive emotions. And prayer can bring especially serenity, right? And well, there is that serenity prayer too, but it really can. And we have to put ourselves in that position to actively search for it often, right? And that's amazing. I bet you were such a wonderful gift to those nurses and the
They
doctor.
love me. I hate to say that, and I'm not bragging, but it's just a fact of life. I love them, and they knew it, and they loved me right back. And I had one nurse come in. She goes, "I bet you're a Christian." I said, "Well, I bet you're right." I said, "Are you?" And she said, "Well, actually, I am a Christian." And I said, "A born again Christian, believing in Jesus Christ?" And she goes, "I am. And thank you for asking." So you know what? God uses us in every single way, all the time. And it's just awesome. I'm a happy girl.
Ah, well, and you bring so much joy to all of us and your students. I know that for a fact.
Thank
KK,
you.
there is a question in the chat from Stephanie. As leaders in our programs, how can we help to elicit positive emotions in our faculty outside of gratitude?
Okay, so that's a great question. And I think that it is, so as a leader in the program, so like connecting with like adjunct faculty. And I asked for that clarification because if I were to give this talk to organizational leaders, I'd give a different talk. And I would start with some caveats that about positive emotions. But I think it's different in this case if you're talking about adjunct faculty members.
Yes, Stephanie, are you able to speak up? Oh, yes, she says yes.
Okay. And I'll talk in a minute about what I would do different with other like organizational leaders. I think it's giving them expressing gratitude, but also giving them those moments to see, oh my goodness, like look at this student, what they said about you, which also feels like gratitude. But you're giving them this opportunity to feel pride in what they do, right? If the student's giving positive feedback, or, hey, look at this, like students have never done this well in a class before. And so you can thank them, but you can also elicit other positive emotions and, and help them savor when they have compliments for them that again, go beyond gratitude and help build their esteem and so on. And I think that it's it's really, and giving them other opportunities for, hey, you know what, you've done such a great job here. Do you have ideas of how to best address this in a different class or something? So you're giving them pride and motivation, and tapping into their expertise in different ways. So I do think that there are a lot of ways to do it, but also, never underestimate the power of gratitude. And again, gratitude can elicit so many other positive emotions when we're really specific about what we're grateful for and why.
Thank you, KK. I hate to be the bearer of a negative emotion here, but we are going to need to bring this to a conclusion for now. We're up on our 1 o'clock hour. Thank you so much for the information. There are many, many thank yous in the chat, which you'll be able to see a little bit later. And thank you so much for everybody's participation. Again, thank you for the wonderful information. This will be sent out to everybody. There's a list of references for people. If you want more information, I'm sure KK will be glad to answer any more information one-on-one. And so thank you very much. And we hope to see everybody at next month's FDI. Thanks again.
Thanks for coming, everyone.